This is a production of the AJ Podcast Network.
Pushing and pulling, I want you, but you won't leave. I hate you, I love you, you love me, yeah, you gotta be free. If I'm your cage, leave. But if you stay with me, eventually we'll find happy.
Should I go left? Should I go?
Here we go again, people, for another episode of the Passage Home podcast starring the Dr. Stanley Russian. And I'm your co-host, Bax a Billion. Now, before we get started, let me let y'all know where you can find us at. Our main hub for the podcast is going to be YouTube. Just look up Passage Home Podcast on YouTube. But also, you could download us on Podbean, Apple, iHeart Radio, CastBox, Google Podcasts, and don't forget to ask Alexa to play the Passage Home Podcast for you and see what happens. Also, I got another podcast starring my homeboy AJ, and it's called I Can Relate to That. And this podcast can be found on Apple, Spotify, Google Podcasts, TuneIn Radio, CastBox, iHeart, Podbean, Stitcher, and you can ask Alexa to go ahead and play the I Can Relate to That podcast as well. Now, if you need to reach us, you want to give donations, you want to just give some info, or you want to just talk to us, reach us at passagehomepodcast@gmail.com. And don't forget about sponsorships. If you want to sponsor the show and help us fuel our message, passagehomepodcast@gmail.com. Now, without no further ado, Dr. Stanley Russian, how you doing today?
Amazing. By the grace of God, everything is amazing and getting better.
Amazing.
Yes, sir.
So talk to me, Dr. Stanley Russian.
We're bringing back, today we're bringing back Ken Tyler, a very good close friend of mine, fellow technologist, a man after my own heart, a man of the times, and the time is now. Technology has been important to me throughout my life, but it's so nifty that we have technologies that can advance us in Africa, and we call it turning the Flintstones into the Jetsons technology, where you think you were way behind, and then you because of the technologies that are out there, you not only catch up with everybody, you can pass everybody else up. Because Africa was left behind because there's so much infrastructure that wasn't built. The telephone lines, the RS-45 lines are putting in for computers, but now everything is wireless. So there is no need to build the infrastructure, because now we can take off and from where we are to go into the future and not miss a beat, through the wireless technology that's out there. And so today we're going to talk about something that we are privy to, is technology that's here that can advance Africa into the future, because now is the time. Yeah, we're going to talk about technology of tomorrow and how it relates to Africa and what we can bring to the table. And waiting in our green wine room, we have Ken Tyler, who's going to talk about that. And our first question to Ken is, what do you see as the future of sub-Saharan Africa?
Well, I see the future as amazing. I mean, I'm so bullish on what is needed, but also what is available, not only just here in the U.S., but also in Europe. technologies that will bring Africa from being in the 40s right now into the 21st century in a very short time period. There are amazing technologies that are being developed, not just here, but all around the world that can be helpful. The infrastructure, the basic safety and livelihood, the 1.5 billion people that live in sub-Saharan Africa.
Wow. Just to give a precursor of how far ahead those technologies are, I remember 25 years ago, I arrived in London and I was going to Belgium and I was going to take a flight from Belgium to the Congo. And when I arrived there in London, I took a train to Belgium. And as you know, London is on an island. And this train it's called the tunnel, and it went below the sea. And I came up at a stop in Belgium, in a neighborhood that's a Congolese neighborhood that has 100,000 Congolese there. And it's called Podbean. But excuse my French. And it's not far from the EU, that building that's there for their services, all of the European Union. And I remember while riding on this train, and it was traveling at a high speed under the sea, and we still have Wi-Fi 25 years ago. And if you have a laptop that you need to charge electrically, they had a plug under your seat. And I'm not sure, but I believe that today, with all the technology that we talk about, somewhere in New York, as I took this train, I realized then as well as now that you can't ride a subway train in New York and not lose transmission. But yet still, I was riding a train, a bullet train, under the sea and still had perfect Wi-Fi. And so these are the technologies that we're bringing to Africa. And we first spoke about the sub-Saharan and what we can do there.
I want to ask him this. What type of technology does he believe will boom the future of Africa? Like, what will boom in Africa when it comes to technology?
There's a myriad of things. My looking at the technology basically comes from an infrastructure focus. Without being able to build a good infrastructure, you're not going to have anything that really brings the future forward. And bringing it forward, it's not just the Amazon kind of stuff, but the basics. For example, there is something that's been developed called self-watering soil. I mean, if you can just imagine, last time I was on the show, I talked to you about how people were pulling water from the atmosphere, okay? And that is being produced now by some people in Texas. But self-watering soil, it is a knockoff of what the Chinese have done with a gel that basically allows the plant to take a certain amount of water, but also to continue to water itself in the future, you know? And you don't have to do the same kind of irrigation that we normally do with soil. There's another package that I think is really exciting for infrastructure. It's called bridge in a backpack. Now that may sound a little crazy, a backpack and a bridge. But the University of Maine has developed this technology, and it's a fiber reinforced polymer tube. Okay, and it's about, they can come in 6 inches or 12 inches diameter. And instead of waiting for steel to be measured and processed and sent to Africa for smaller roads or really ditches that need to be covered so that people can get from point A to point B. These tubes can be shipped, they can be cut to match the height, the length of a bridge that needs to be done. They're anchored into a cement base, and then there's a floating cement that's sort of self fills the tube to make it hard
Right.
and withstand the weight and everything. Um, Really interesting because you don't have to wait for all kinds of specs to be done by engineers. You can bring the tubes, in terms of the maximum length, they're so light that two people can pick them up and carry them. You don't need heavy equipment to do it. And what would normally take 5 or 6 months for a bridge to be measured out and all the specs to be done and shipped to the plant, normally overseas and whatever, can all be done within a matter of 2 weeks. And that bridge can be up and running and handle heavyweight 18 wheelers loaded to the gills, heavy equipment, military equipment, etc. Really nice. This is something that can be licensed from the University of Maine to people who would want to do it. One of the really fascinating things that's coming through too, which there's considerable amount of talk about in the US right now, is 3D housing construction. 3D house can be built in a matter of 4 days. 4 days. It will stand earthquake, it will stand rain, it can be 2 bedroom, 3 bedroom, etc. And you can do it for less than $20,000. It's amazing. Those can be done. Complete villages now are being constructed here in the US and other places where this can be done in Africa. When you see the pictures of all of the villages and the markets in Africa through the movies and whatever, those are real, but there's also thousands, hundred thousands of acres all around those marketplaces where these villages could be constructed in clean areas with enough space where people aren't on top of each other as you see in the marketplace. Because believe me, when you see those spots in those things, people live in the back of it. They're not getting in a car and drive into the suburbs. They live in the back of where their store is. Sometimes they're containers, etc. So 3D printing is something that's going to be amazing for Africa as we go forward. The other thing that is really interesting too.
Hey.
Yeah.
Listen, I want to say to the audience right now, everything that Ken is talking about, we are going to put websites in the description below. Please like and subscribe. And we're not just talking futuristic things. We're talking about available technology that
Right
we
now.
can move on, and we will be moving on post haste within the next 3 months. That you can participate instead of digging a well. You can participate in providing for Africans housing, bridging, things that will make life for you even easier, because we're all going to be taking a trip there sooner than you think. That this is not just tourism. We came over here on the bottom of the boat. Well, we're gonna go back on the top of the boat, and partying all the way back, and bringing these technologies, so that they are welcoming us with open arms, because we're not coming there asking for welfare. We're trying to. There's a reason why we were here. And we're taking that information back to bless them and ourselves as things get to the point where we realize we can't stay here and ride this dead horse that we've been used to riding, and so on and so forth. And it just so happened I was privy to be on a meeting this week with Donald Arnold. And for those of you who don't know who he is, he's the president, no, he's the CEO over Carnival Cruises. And through PPP loans, he's been able to sustain not only Carnival Cruises, but 9 cruise lines below them. And so I already see how he's going to play a part taking black folks back to Africa, because Africa is going to be one of the few tourist spots you can go that's not infested with coronavirus like other countries. So it's going to be a part of our picture as everything comes together. I was saying that we came over on the bottom of the boat, but when we go back, we're going on top, and we're going to be taking back technologies that's going to enhance our life there and the lives of Africans that are there. Things like what Kim has been discussing, I want to ask the question, what is the Wave 20 technology?
Wave. Actually, it's not. Maybe my writing was wrong, but it's actually Wave 2.0. And what it is a mechanism using ocean waves along with powerful electricity to desalinize salt water. As you know, there are about 2 billion people who suffer from the effects of scarcity of good, clean water, either for agriculture or for portable drinking, etc. And the Wave 2.0 seawater desalinization is an excellent potential solution to that process. And it basically looks almost like the big wheels that you used to see on the Mississippi River boats as they go up and down the Mississippi, taking people along the coastline. But it is situated underwater, and in that movement, this process takes place, and it has been stalled somewhat. Although I think the process has been resolved based on what I've seen lately from the government laboratories. The need for consistent electrical power that would be needed in Africa, which is a big problem, as we all know right now, because of brownouts and blackouts and a very poor grid system. But that technology, unlike what is being done in California right now along the coastline of California, where American Water and California Water Company are spending $1 billion, $900 million to build a water desalinization plant to help the southern end of California. Well, Wave 2.0 can replace that and can be done in smaller mechanisms for cities along the coast of Africa. And it was developed by the John Glenn Research Center here in the U.S. And it is available for licensing. They can help you take it from lab to commercialization. The people who developed it are there to help you. And I think it's going to be really important because, as I said, there are like 2 billion people around the world that suffer from the lack of clean drinking water every day.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. So and let me break it down a little bit more. So right now, they have over 2,800 fishing boats on the Congolese River, which is about 3,000 miles long from China. So we can also help clean that water, make it potable water for the villages that line the Congo River. One of the things that you pointed out that I want to the bystanders that's listening to this saying, wow, what this also means is that what you basically address is that in order to do desalinization, you need a lot of power. And
Yes.
so not only will you have the power to do desalinization cost effective, you will also have power that you can create for villages up and along the Congo River.
River. That's true. Yes. Very much so.
Yeah.
Hmm.
That's what as a technologist, that's what I see. And so back, Nick, it's to you. Next question.
So with all of this technology and things of that nature, what do you see as the future of sub-Saharan Africa?
Uh,
Well, I think that the future is going to be amazing for Sub-Sahara. There are technologies that are being developed not only here, as I said in the beginning, but also in Europe that will be available for the basic infrastructure. As I was saying before, Africa is like in the 40s right now, the way we were in the 40s. But they're lucky that they're able to jump past what would been the 50s, the 60s, and the 70s of our development into the 21st century because technology has moved that quickly. And they don't have to have the dread research laboratory time. They can become just like China. China is, everybody sort of raves about China. Oh, it's this, it's that, and whatever. But the difference is, China never went through those time periods either. China either stole or were given the technologies by majority white owned corporations here because they wanted that market and they saw that market as a big market 1.2 billion, 1.4 billion people. Yeah. So they were able to jump over the 50s, the 60s, the 70s, and even the 80s into the 21st century because of that. And now that we are aware of what needs to be done and the many laboratories and colleges here and in Europe that are developing this technology and that are willing to license it to people who want to go to Africa to make these contributions to the continent and to the people there is the reason that I'm so high on what can happen there because I see it every day as I talk to people. Now, one of the things that's going to help this process is that people who are listening to this podcast and who are really interested begin to look at the research that is there. I spoke a little bit about this on the first show, but there are government federal laboratories who you can go online and just type in list of federal government laboratories, and a list will pop up. Hundreds of laboratories. Every major college in the US has research laboratories that are doing things. And then they have an Office of Technology or Office of Technology or Commercialization Opportunity. Okay, some of them name them different. And you can go on to those websites and pull up through your search those offices. And there are a list of all the things that they have developed that are still available for licensing.
So just to make it clear, this is a place where people can go and research the technologies that are coming up available for licensing.
Yeah, that have been developed at that university or in a federal laboratory or private laboratory. Okay. Yeah, that they can license. Mm-hmm. And you don't have to be an engineer or a mad scientist. You just have to be somebody who's interested in it and be willing to spend the time to learn what they're going to give you. Because believe me, one of the things I've had this conversation with myriad of people. Well, I'm not this, I'm not that. You don't have to be. Can you read and write? Are you prepared to put the time in to study and learn what they're going to give you? Because 90% of what you're going to get is going to be as fat as the old yellow telephone book. And it's going to give you what you need. What is the product? How was it decided to do it? Because most products are created by solving a problem that somebody has in the marketplace. Okay? Which means then that there's a customer for you. All right? That's the other thing. Who do I sell it to? It's all there. How it was done, the machinery that it takes, what the testing was done, who they tested with. All of the results are there, plus the people who worked on it, who can work as a partner with you or as a consultant if they're not willing to leave the lab, and you just have to put in the time. Instead of playing video games, you can put the time in reading and researching and calling up and asking questions, because believe me, they will answer your questions and they are available to you to help you commercialize that technology that may have spent 4, 5, 6, 7 years developing.
Wow.
Mhm. Let's talk about the Israeli miracle in agriculture. Because being from Chicago, I'm not like Kanye West or Michelle Obama bragging that I was from the South Side. But what I did do in Chicago, I was influenced by Marcus Garvey, Elijah Muhammad, Pan African movement. But the first thing we learned is that you got to feed yourself. So
Yes.
talk to us about agriculture.
Just recently, I'm on a list. I'm on a myriad list, and I get information sent to me from all over the place. Okay, and I mean that all over the world: Finland, Denmark, everywhere. So I'm also on the list from Israel, and I've been watching Israel over the last 5 or 6 years or so, and I've been researching and categorizing all of the things that they have done. Now, if you remember, and most people in our age group really only respond to Israel after World War II, but the history goes back to the kibbutzes. And I will deviate only for a second to tell you how stupid and politically stupid the American political system is. A kibbutz is a socialist state. Everybody there has an equal say as to what is going to happen. Okay, and I mean everybody. All right. If you remember in doing this last campaign, in the campaign before, Bernie got slaughtered on the socialist Democrat. Yeah, yeah, yeah. But yet, at the same time, here are the American people and the government giving Israel all of this money to keep them afloat. And they're our number one supporter and our number one ally outside, et cetera, which is all true. But the politics of it, of the socialist side of it, is so pathetic. It's ridiculous because a kibbutz is where most of these ideas came into being. As I said before, a product comes out of a problem. The kibbutzes had problem. How are they going to feed themselves, as Dr. Russian said? They in the desert. So how do you get water? How do you turn the desert sand into producing agricultural land that can feed, 50 million people? And they have done it. They have done it better than anybody that you've ever seen and whatever. Irrigation equipment, all kinds of products. I mean, if you can imagine, apples, peaches, pears, mangoes, tomatoes, okra, every kind of vegetable that you could want is being grown in the desert through the kibbutz system. Okay? They also have developed the masterpiece of irrigation equipment. It is being used and also manufactured through distributors in 120 countries. Okay? That's how they're doing it. And if you can understand that the UN only has 198 members, countries, but Israel, through this agricultural equipment that they've done and through what they've used it for to grow food to feed themselves, is in 120 countries. It is available to Africa. You can license it. You can become a distributor. You can turn the dirt and the soil that we see in the desert and in these towns, etc., into productive soil. Now let's go back to what I was talking about before: the self-watering soil. You mix the self-watering soil and the agricultural drip irrigation together, and you can produce almost anything that you want in the world. That is the miracle. It's not only what they've done, but what they have to offer to sub-Saharan Africa in terms of how. Now, those things are things that I'm amazed that only 4 African countries have contacted Israel to produce, to get the licensing to produce this irrigation equipment, etc. There's no reason why the other 50 countries shouldn't be doing the same thing. It is something that I certainly, through contacts that I have at the UN, through ambassadors there and et cetera, are going to be talking to people about, because it is amazing. Not only does the equipment do the job, but a plant that you would license from the Israelis to make this equipment in your country also will produce 79 jobs, full-time paying jobs for people who will learn to do this equipment, work there every day, and begin to do what they need to do. Now, my strategy is very simple. I want to follow the Hertz rent-a-car strategy, which is it becomes an employee-owned company, not some big-time general, not some elected political official, or not some white or European-owned company, but the employees themselves. That you help them finance it, you help them train it, and then you begin to create wealth for them and their families because they own the business the same way Hertz employees owns Hertz Rent-A-Car. It is an ideal model for how you get money to the lowest rung of the economic strategists in Africa.
Right. And for my last question, I was going to ask you, but I already mentioned that if you can send us some, we're going to put in our description some of the places that websites that we can pull up so that that person that's out there who's listening to this, who's going back, and if he's armed with this technology, you got options. Now, you are already welcome back there, but there's a reason why we were here. And this, what Ken is talking about, is something that we have that we can take back and make a difference in those countries. They're waiting for us. They need what he's talking about, and right now, bringing that plugs right into what they're talking about. We really thank you, Ken, for laying it out and shining the light, pointing the way for us, and which fits into the motif of passage back home, because it's not just a passage, it entails us bringing back something, the gold and the silver, while a lot of people are waiting around for reparations, we have more than enough that we can put our hands on that will reparate us and Africa. And Matt Bax,
yes, sir.
Closes out.
Well, this was definitely an awesome show, man. I know that if I ever, go to Africa, I want to bring you brothers with me. I feel like we could definitely live and survive off the land and put together and build. And I bring my whole family. As long as you brothers are with me, I feel like I'm good. But this was another episode of the Passage Home podcast. We're gonna see you next time for the next show. Thank you again. Y'all have a great night. Our listeners connect.
Should I go left? Should I go right? What I'm doing, investing in your life. Time wasted, my body loves it, my mind hates it. Fights in public and we can't erase it. Everybody saw, should've seen their faces. Face it, it's only love when we naked, that's basic. I'm trying to fly like a spaceship and take it beyond the stars, beyond the sun. Remember when it all was fun? All I had to do was call, you come. And now I can't feel at all, I'm numb. And you don't hold me down, you hold me back. Back then, I wish you would've showed me that. All we do is fight, go tick for tack. This my last night, this shit's a wrap.
Pushing and pulling, I want you, but you wanna leave. I hate you, I love you, you love me, yeah, you gotta be free. If I'm your cage, leave. But if you stay with me, eventually we'll find happy.
This is a production of the AJ Podcast Network.